Okay.
How are ya?
Don't let your guard down. Oh.
When would work for you guys? Tomorrow.
Wouldn't put a lot of money on it though.
I won't be here Friday.
Thank you.
I know, I'm waiting to attend. When they come in the door, that way I don't get hungry with it. I'm gonna trust the mayor, so I might get yelled at. He might come in tomorrow. Hold on, let me take it out.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly because we went to one.
How long of an office do we have to get? A week or so.
Councilmember Gardner, I heard that there's some biographies in the next week too, so please fill that out, and you're gonna issue by next Tuesday. That's the latest.
What is it, 20?
You have to fill it out, and it's gonna be by Tuesday latest, what am I gonna do?
What's
Councilmember
your-
Gardner declined to comment.
Like, are you thinking during the day?
I could just write it.
Or have you?
Don't do that. Did you get any? I'll be in the evening just because of, the council having fun.
Okay. Well,
I realize that hours have to be.
whoa, it's one of those things where some of those are just sort of what they would be when they need to be, you know?
Well, and I.
Sometimes.
But it's also a long one, that is.
By the time you get a perfect day for everybody, we're 5 years down the road.
Oh, you're welcome. What? I always get one from Steve, and I'm like, oh,
I guess so.
Okay, I think that could be a nice thing.
They're all.
I think the 16th could go.
Well, that's a Wednesday. The day after the. I think that'll work. proceed if I, about a minute. Are we, is everybody ready? You guys ready? Okay. I'll call this meeting to order. It is 5:59. First thing on our agenda is please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next thing on our agenda is roll call, please.
Mayor Terry Whiteham,
Here.
Vice Mayor Jacqueline Wells. Here. Councilmember Aaron Dorr,
Here.
Councilmember Darrell Gardner,
Here.
Councilmember Davari Martinez,
Here.
Councilmember Linda Smith. Here. Councilmember Chris Weisenberg.
Here. Thank you. Next thing on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve the February 7th special council meeting.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the February 7th special meeting agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Open online voting. Aye.
Open out loud yelling too.
Online voting is open. Councilmember Weisenberg, you were yes.
Yes.
Aye, yes.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wells, you.
Oh, yes, I thought I was logged in.
Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 7 yes.
Log in. The next thing on our agenda is a public hearing. I'm gonna open a public hearing. It's a rezone change from residential 7.5, R, 7.5 to commercial 2, C2, for the construction of BLM barracks and wildland fire station for a property located near Donnell and Bennett Streets, north of State Highway 71, more specifically described as Township 21 North, Range 87 West, Section 20 Southeast Quarter Northwest, Northwest Quarter, Southeast Quarter, and Northeast Quarter of Rollins, Carbon County, Wyoming. So at this time, is there anybody that would like to have anything to say about this issue? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name, and
Good evening, my name is Tim Novotny, and I'm the acting field manager for the Bureau of Land Management's Rollins Field Office. On a PowerPoint presentation that I make it as brief as possible to outline the project. So the Bureau of Land Management is requesting a zoning change from residential 7.5 to commercial 2. The purpose of our request is so that we could build barracks for our seasonal employees, primarily firefighters, on a BLM parcel in the south end of town. This is a zoomed out map of the current zoning for Rollins.
I have my full screen view and I can't figure it out.
It's down on where the purple, we actually have another map that's blown up. So just go to the next slide, it'll. right, where her.
There's three of them that didn't load.
Got some handouts we could. Sorry about that. So the parcel that we're, wanting to develop is, just south of the purple parcel, and it's, in Donnell Street. On it'd be the third page of that handout.
I zoomed in to approximately the same.
Okay. Okay. So the parcel that we're looking at, is just, east of where, right there, yeah. That's the parcel where we'd like to, build our, barracks on. It would be a 2,000 square foot approximately building that would have 20 dorm room style rooms in it for the housing of our seasonals. Then there's a parcel just to the east of this that is owned by the city. In there, and then the parcel just adjacent to that is another property. So our ultimate goal, so we currently have funding for the barracks facility that we want to build. In the future, if we were to ever get funding, we'd also like to build a wildland fire station, to make our wildland fires, like this would be basically a engine bay for fire engines and some training facilities, like classroom type stuff, as well as locker rooms and things of that nature for the firefighters. That is a project further down the road, but if we can get it taken care of for funding for that. So, mentioned it's, working.
No, that's the same one.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so this one shows, kind of an approximate layout on the existing parcel. On the left side of the picture is our existing facility. There's two, buildings there, and you can see in the image here, there's a number of, like RV campers, that, are owned. Most of them are BLM owned. I think there might be a couple of privately owned ones that were there, owned by a seasonal. On the right side of the picture shows the layout of what we're proposing. The top portion of it, and it's kind of an L shape, would be the barracks that we have the funding for now. Just below, but just south of that is a parking lot. It'd be a paved parking lot. and then south of that is what would be the future proposed wildland fire station. So, allowing, if the zoning were to pass, we would be taking out the buildings that you see at our existing facility, and that parcel there would be used as a storage yard for, construction, materials like road culverts and, fencing materials or, cattle guards, things of that. Houses with property. So, when we were, as we've been planning this, our, engineers in our National Operations Center did an analysis on building the new barracks at the proposed new location, as well as building it on the existing, site. Both of these parcels are currently, zoned, in the residential, so even the existing one that we have, my understanding is just colored in it long, but if the rezoning was added into compliance, but, so our engineers, National Operations Center, did an analysis on the cost of building the same facility at both sites. They determined that it would actually be more expensive to build on the site, the existing site where our buildings are now, because all the infrastructure would have to be upgraded, and, just calculations and everything, costs more to do it there. Also, present a problem for us in that we would be without seasonal housing for a year, at least 1 year. That's why we're proposing to do it on site, which, is okay. There should be another proposed. Something up there. Well, if you could go in the handout, if you could go to the second to last page, there's a clear diagram without kind of the satellite imagery underneath it that is maybe easier for us to show you the facility. So it's, essentially an L-shaped building. It's gonna look a lot like, just a house, I believe. The parking lot, to the south of it's gonna be paved. There's gonna be, parking lot lights, that are, 20 feet high. I think the lights are 20 foot high, and they're designed to shine down rather than to broadcast out like you might see, well, our existing or a super. Kind of put the light down just on the parking, broadcast out. As we were going around talking with some of the affected landowners, that's been one of the questions and concerns coming from affected by this. That's, I guess, I had to present, but if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer.
This is, during the public hearing, so we're just taking testimony now.
Okay.
And when we go into the new business part, that's when we'll have a variety of questions.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Next person that would like to comment, just come on up and. Tell us who you are, even though we know.
My name is Denise Mayberry. And good evening, Mayor Wycombe, Council. This particular application, I'm not sure if this is the right time for my comments. Public portion.
Correct, this is
Okay.
public hearing part,
This
correct?
particular application really brought to light various issues, and I'm on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that is where my questions and comments are directed. It may be helpful to provide some context to how this particular application triggered my concerns. The BLM application requested a zone change for the placement of both a firehouse and a barracks. The BLM sent out notices only to a portion of residents who had the same physical and mailing address. Other property owners who had a PO box or out-of-town addresses were not contacted by the BLM. It is my understanding that the city staff did send out letters to everyone affected within a specific radius, but that the city also had a very low response rate. We learned during the course of the meeting last Monday that from the BLM that it was only the barracks that are actually planned, and the firehouse was a future possibility. There were no real plans or funding for its development at the present time. Such, the information we were provided to review listed the firehouse as the primary object of the application for the zone change, and the inclusion of the firehouse triggered application of certain ordinances in our review, along with the permissible uses that accompanied that designation. It was only during the meeting that we found out that the firehouse would not be built, and the plan for funding was only for the barracks. Therefore, in the perspective of the Planning and Zoning Commission, in my perspective, the application was not candid regarding the status of the firehouse pursuant to the materials we as commission members were provided. Additionally, the maps the BLM provided, and also tonight, the materials you looked at, were not included in our original packet last week. So these materials you are looking at are different from what we saw then. In the maps that the BLM provided, there were only portions of maps that appeared to request a zone change, and there was a portion that was circled. And that led the commission to believe that the application for zone change was only for that small piece of property. However, during the course of the meeting, it was clarified that the BLM property encompasses a much larger, irregularly shaped parcel that surrounds residential property, including that city portion. A grant of their application would then modify the entire parcel, not just the portion that they had circled and the portion where the proposed barracks are going to be. The maps provided showed an incomplete picture to us as a commission, and also to the potential impact to residents, limiting their ability to fully understand the application and the materials they received. I attribute the slow response rate to the lack of understanding regarding the scope of the application. I personally felt that this application, because it did not check the boxes, because it did ask for a firehouse or a fire station in the application, and we reviewed the materials with the perspective that it would be a firehouse. That alone provided grounds to deny the application. It was not what the application as presented was not what the application wanted. I also believe that the inclusion of the fire station in the application material sent to residents may have also played on the sympathies and emotions of citizens as well as our members, particularly with the increased incidence of wildfires that's been going on, and residents' desire to protect natural resources. That sympathy may have also overridden requirements for the commission to assess any impacts that proposed zone changes might have on our neighbors. In my regular job, I'm frequently tasked with reviewing information that comes in many forms, and I've learned to withhold my opinion until the very end after hearing all of the information presented. When we received the materials last week, it had an initial view into what the materials were. However, it wasn't until after the BLM had provided their presentation that we truly understood the breadth and scope of the application. And in that regard, I felt it was misleading to our members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So in this application, I saw various shortcomings, not just with the BLM application, but also with the overall Planning and Zoning Commission process. And it is that I have questions directed and comments directed to council. Primarily, my main question is in regard to what is our role and the real job of the Planning and Zoning Commission? Are we here to check off the boxes, and when an application comes in, cross-reference it to see that that application checks the boxes? Or do we also have a secondary role to provide an initial check to the potential impacts that might come from a particular application, and then to provide recommendation and feedback to council before we pass it on? So therefore, in that regard, if that is part of our role, are we also acting as, for lack of a better word, as initial gatekeepers looking out for the best interests of our community? Additionally, other concerns with this permit that opened up other concerns were that, I don't recall the particular ordinance number, but it provides that a permit requesting a zone change does not require a particular response rate from the citizens impacted, although it does provide for particular procedures if a certain percentage of citizens object to the application. I believe this ordinance probably requires some review to determine whether there should also be a requirement of a percentage of, or a majority of citizens impacted to provide responses in order to adequately assess any impacts regarding any changes. Those are the two main concerns, and I view these issues as our role in the Planning and Zoning Commission and how we move forward. Although my concerns were brought to light during this particular application, I declined to assess blame to anybody in particular, but these are also things that I believe we need to address as we go forward in our role and to have proper guidance and instruction. As the co-chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I appreciate the opportunity to address council tonight regarding my concerns, and I do appreciate any guidance you can provide us in the future.
Anybody else that would like to just come on up?
Evening, guys. I'm Wendy Newbro. I live on Dunwell Street. I emailed a packet to you guys, earlier this afternoon, and if you guys don't have it, I have copies for you if you need it. First of all, I want to say I do not have a problem with BLM building a barracks and a fire station in the zone that was applied for, that little subsection. I do have a problem with the way it's been advertised, the way it's been, publicly noticed, placed on the agenda, placed in motion, the additional land that was not applied for. That's, where my issue comes from. I feel that if you do the motion as it's presented in the agenda, you will be granting additional land that wasn't ever applied for in the original application. So I feel that based on that alone, this should be, I hate to say it, denied, for lack of a better word, because it's not been advertised properly per the legal notices, per anything that's been done other than the application stating that specific spot. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Is there anybody else? Hearing none, I will. Are you done? Okay. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and go into the next thing on our agenda. And under new business is this zone change, and I would entertain a motion there.
No, I'm willing to do it, I'm not really sure exactly what motion, or as far as language.
Well, you can just start with, for discussion purposes only, make a motion, but till we have a motion and a second, then we can't even discuss it.
Discuss it, yes. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the rezoning change from residential 7.5 to commercial 2 for the construction of BLM Barracks and Wildland Fire Station located near Donnell and Bennett Streets, north of State Highway 71. I need to read the rest of described as Township 21 North, Range 87 West, Section 20 Southeast, 1/4 Northwest, 1/4 Southeast 1/4, and Northeast 1/4 of Rawlins, Carbon County, Wyoming.
For the purpose of discussion, I would second this.
All right, there's been a motion made and seconded to approve a rezone change from residential 7.5, R-7.5 to commercial 2, C2 for the construction of BLM barracks and wildland fire station for a property located near Donnell and Bennett Streets, north of, Highway 71, more specifically described as Township 21 North, Range 87 West, Section 20 Southeast Quarter, Northwest Quarter, Southeast Quarter, and Northeast Quarter of Rawlins, Carbon County, Wyoming. Is there any discussion? I'm sure there's a bunch. Councilman Martinez.
I guess what I wanna start out with is that it was my vision of what the BLM was asking for was they were gonna come, east of their existing properties where they're at now and come over to a fence line, so that, we're gonna stop there. And then the property next to that fence line to the east belongs to the city of Rawlins. And there's a section of property, on the east side of Jackson Street that belongs to the Bureau of Land Management. So my thinking on this was that if they were gonna go to just the fence line, I don't have a problem with that at all. I think it's a good idea. I think it'll make the area look, different. But anyway, having said that, I think that I would like to see, I'd like to work with the BLM on the property that, is further to the east, that goes down Donnell up to Pershing Street. That piece of property there belongs to the BLM, and I'd like the city to acquire that so that we have full control of what the residents of Rawlins would like to do in that area of town. That's where I'm at, and I thought I double checked, and they told me they were gonna stop at their BLM fence line, which is a little bit east of the city's property. Is that correct? Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So let the record state that the BLM says they're gonna stop at that fence line. We're not gonna go further east. So that was my big concern.
I don't think it's been made clear with what we've had in front of us, and I'd like it clarified, for everybody in the room too. What exactly is the area on that map that you're asking to rezone? Where does it start and stop and all of that? The other thing is, well, let's start there. I mean, I realize the BLM owns, like, looking at this slide here, everything north of the highway that's yellow is BLM, is that correct? Okay, so are you asking to rezone all of that, or a portion of it?
So we only want to rezone this right where that is. That's all the BLM wants to. It's our understanding that the city process requires us to consider the whole parcel rather than spot what the zoning commission that we met with last week for doing spot zoning. So it's not our need to do that, it's the city process, I understand, that is opening up that furthest parcel to the east to also be rezoned.
All of the purple is that,
So,
correct, so this,
so what we're interested in is right here. This right here is city land right now, and public land, and then there's a strip that runs. So, as a result of our application to rezone this, all of this is being
all the way down to here.
correct.
Oh, I thought it was.
Not up here yet. The purple is just a different city zoning, I'm not sure.
Purple's industrial.
That would be this section.
Exactly right.
What we need rezoned is this piece right here,
Right.
and then there's,
Can you point it up there and just answer the question for, is that okay?
can I run your mouse maybe?
Yeah. No, please run my mouth.
So where all pieces are.
And it's in the back
So-
page are.
Yes.
This section right in here is the piece that the BOM needs to be rezoned to complete our project. And there's a BOM piece down here that is included, and then this stuff up here is also included as in the rezoning, but we don't need that to be rezoned.
But you don't need that.
We do not.
Is it, so now I wanna switch over to the legal department to see, is there, tell me about letting them rezone the portion that they need to rezone without rezoning these other ones over by the people's house.
Yeah, I speak for Lou, I'll let Lou jump in and correct me, but my understanding of the parcel, and I don't know if you can pull up, Myra, the zoning map.
I can. Close enough, would you like? Oh, what's it doing? Why did it not switch? Okay, this one is really sluggish compared to.
So the parcel of property to the east of what's been applied for is C2. Then if you go west from that C2 district, you have R7.5. That R7.5 encompasses that small sliver that goes from east to west, and then back up R7.5. The purple area, as I understand it, is industrial. So if you approve the zone change, first of all, it's an entire parcel owned by the BLM. It's not splitting it up into lots and blocks. So we potentially would have to go through a subdivision process, which BLM, with the time constraint I think that they have, did not want to go that route. So they applied for the entire parcel. And what my understanding was, it was the entire parcel that they owned. And so you would have C2 connect to C2. There would be the section of residential in between that, which is the city-owned, but the C2 would continue through on the southern boundary of that property over to, the other part of the BLM.
So they either have to subdivide to do the little portion that they wanna do, or rezone the whole parcel, which is both sides of the city.
Correct.
And the time constraint for, the BLM, how long does it take to do
my understanding is that their funding deadline, and I think this application goes back to March of 2021. But because of whatever reasons, didn't get to the Planning and Zoning Commission until recently, and their funding deadline is this week, tomorrow. So it certainly would have taken longer to get it through the subdivision process. Preliminary plat, final plat, approval on planning and zoning, approval at city council than it would for this process for the zone change.
In the application, was the application correct for what we're being presented with?
The application, my understanding is that the application included a legal description, section 20, southeast quarter, northwest quarter, southeast quarter, and northeast quarter.
Is that an accurate description of this property?
It does not include that portion to the west, northwest of where that shows it going up to the industrial.
Councilman Martinez?
I just wanna get down to layman's terms. From Jackson Street east belongs to the city, and then a portion of that it runs along Donnell up to Pershing, belongs to the BLM. You don't wanna go that far, you wanna go west, right?
Yeah, we do not have an interest
Interested in that piece that runs up to Pershing?
which one is Pershing?
Pershing runs,
It's gonna be that red section, very first red section from.
No.
you're not going there, you're
No.
going west,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanna make sure, because the way I see that piece of property, I see it sometime down in the future, I probably won't be around to see it, but if someday the city would acquire that, then they would have all that piece, and it would border the city property. Is that correct?
If that were to happen, yes,
Yeah.
that would be correct.
Okay, that's what I'd like to see done, so, I guess our question is, I just don't see any problem doing what you want, because that sliver, it actually runs between city property, city line and the county line, it runs all the way down to the railroad track, is that correct, and then turns west?
Yeah, and there's the railway has a right of way
Yeah.
on it, so we wouldn't be able to do anything with that.
Yeah, there's nothing.
There's nothing, yeah.
That's what I showed you.
Okay, but what they're asking to do is rezone a portion
That's
that
right.
hasn't been divided yet. So their land is odd shaped,
Yeah.
and they're asking for a rezone, but we can't rezone a portion of a
I
lot
understand that.
at this point in time. So we would have to rezone all of it.
It might be helpful if I discuss briefly with you, BLM's disposal process, because, I mean, ultimately, the concern is what is gonna happen to that chunk of land that we don't wanna develop, that's also, if approved, would become commercial zoned, and the fear is what's gonna happen with that property, that's, the affected landowner's concern. So in order for the BLM to dispose of land that we manage, we have to have it identified in our resource management plan, which is kind of a 20-year guidance document. It has to be identified in that document as a parcel that we could dispose of. So we can't get rid of it unless it's identified for disposal in that document. And in order to get it into that document as identified for disposal, there's it's a resource plan amendment. It's a fairly lengthy process that there's a public scoping period in there where we would tell, the public, we disclose to the public that this parcel of land is being considered for disposal, and we would get, public comment on whether people would be in favor or opposed to that. So there is a public disclosure process. It's a lengthy one, and it doesn't, we have no plans to dispose of that property. It's kind of a situation where, if a city or a county were to come to us and want that parcel of land for a beneficial use, an example that I would throw out is like, if they needed an airport, we could consider disposing of that land to getting that land to the city for the development of an airport or a park or something. It's something for the benefit of the community. What we really don't do, I've never been involved in the 28 years I've been with the BLM, where we dispose of a parcel of BLM land to a private person or firm for solely private commercial benefits. So that's something.
There's a portion of that property that the only one that could really use it would be the county. One that borders the county property towards the railroad track there. That used to be a fishing pond there. I don't know if they got a lease from the BLM years ago, and they put water in there, and that's a few fish, and the kids it's got trees growing in it now, so that, I don't know, you could build on it. It'd be a good place for storage for equipment. That's the one that runs down Bennett Street, all the way down to the railroad track there. Well, I don't know how to handle this, but I don't have a problem with what you're trying.
I just wanna clean up some of the things that were said earlier, what was mailed out from the BLM to the residents in that certain area, are we sure that was adequate? Notice given?
Is that a question to me? Or?
Yes.
So the ordinance at issue in regards to amendments does not require legal notice to be mailed to the property owners within that 300 feet. What the ordinance, provides, and this is 19.80.020, is that if there's a legal protest against the application, if it's signed by 20% or more, either of the area of lots included in the proposed change or of those in a 300-foot radius. So I believe what the ordinance contemplates is that when notice is published in the newspaper, that's sufficient legal notice. There's no direct mailing that's required. BLM sent that notice out on their own. We were provided at the Planning and Zoning Commission level a list of the property owners that notice was sent to, and whether there was a response or no response. And I think, Bowers make mention of the fact that they did not provide notice to one of the members on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we have, the Planning and Zoning Commission has not done anything to verify who received it and what the contents of that mailing was.
I can help you a little bit on that. When they sent this letter out, and I happened to get one, by the way, using, not like the gentleman just told us that he's taking a portion of this property to put a fire station on, property that belongs to the BLM. to go all along their along Donnell Street all the way to the east, to Pershing, that property there, and that's where they brought, so everybody said, we want it. Equipment and stuff right across the street from us, so there's the majority of the signatures. But it's further away than from, I'm guessing that they were, like myself, confused as to where you were gonna do this all along that, all along Donnell Street, all along the service road. I was kinda worried about that when I got the letter. I don't know why I got the letter, because I'm even further away, quite a bit, quite a ways away from.
You know, Mr. Mayor and council, the legal description in the, both in the application as well as in the newspaper includes property to the south of the interstate. So, I would agree with Councilman. It was somewhat confusing compared to what the actual, where the structure is going to be.
I think that's both the folks that contacted me by phone, telling me that they were upset about that. A lot of them are on this.
Smith?
Sue and Tom, I have several questions. This passed the planning and zoning board 4-2, correct? And they want, and they have a legal description that is in front of us at this.
What was on the, Mayor and Council, what was on the original application that was submitted to, was Township 21 North, Range 87, that's Section 20, southeast quarter, northwest quarter. And towards the end of the meeting, planning and zoning meeting, it was found that the legal description could have been southeast quarter, northwest quarter, southeast quarter. So that was somewhat of a discrepancy at that point on the original application. That was pointed out, and
What did the planning commission vote upon? I mean, what was their final voted upon?
there was discussion after this note was made. The southeast quarter, because I believe the gentleman brought it up, that what was, advertised was the wrong one.
It was corrected then?
It was corrected at the meeting, and the presentation from the BLM was that the legal description as published in the newspaper encompassed the area as per the legal description that was modified. May I approach? So this is, section 20, and these are this is the area that was advertised. So it encompasses this up through, it actually encompasses a good part of that residential area, and then down here, which, of course, the BLM doesn't. Here, as it, this would be. This is BLM area.
So, but that was corrected.
This is what was passed, this is what was advertised, and this is what was passed at the Planning and Zoning Commission.
This is that little lot on both sides of the highway, I-80.
It's here, and this right here. It doesn't encompass this area up here.
Okay.
It goes north, south of the interstate.
So if that part of the lot, then how can it be excluded or?
It shouldn't be.
Oh, I see, that was, okay.
Clarify.
Here's this.
Yes, Councilman Smith.
Could continue on here a little bit, on future development of Rollins. If you go anywhere in the United States today, not every town, but most towns have their highway businesses, and you drive down the highway and businesses are on both sides of it. This is prime, development area for highway businesses, not industrial, but highway businesses. And so I'm thinking that when the economic development plan comes out, that they'll review some of this property here and take a look at that, and there'll be another discussion with some of the people living in, on Donnell and Miller Street. The thought that I had, is the particular area where they would like to place their, have their buildings now and want to place the barracks, is not adjacent to any of the majority of the residences. It would abut an industrial area. It is prime areas for development for businesses. Only question that I have is, again, tell me why it's not spot zoning. Ever redoing the whole entire section?
Yes, and that was the concern from the Planning and Zoning Commission, at least from some of the members, that if we left C2 to the east as set forth, if you see the BLM property to the furthest east,
Mm-hmm.
next to it is red, that's C2.
Yeah.
So you would have contiguous parcel of C2 that goes from what's already designated C2 to the BLM, then south of the city's property, back to the BLM, which is designated C2. If you were to only zone, if they subdivided and you zoned only to the west, have C2 residential, C2.
And I do believe probably someday the city, portion of that will probably end up being C.
Right now, it is our 7.5.
Just as for city property, it was given to us by BLM for recreational purposes back in, probably the 70s or 80s. And, we at one time entertained putting, large, office building there for all of the organizations. Using the carbon building and other buildings. That did not come off, it was just a. So I think at any future, this is prime area for development. With the residents now on that street, really concerned about future development, but I think we're careful about that, but I cannot see putting residences right up close to the service road and isn't as a planning tool. I don't want to dismiss. I want them to know and understand what it is. And also, I think that, some museums and things are permissible under C2, if we ever entertain out there, that'd be great. Intrude upon. And having residents upset about us rezoning this, I don't see any doubt.
I can, tell you, living as close to the highway as I have, I think the neighbors that have built like 3 years of houses, I think God they did, because you couldn't even buy my house. So as far as having, 7.5 zoning where the city's property is, that's not, I don't think that's the best use I think because the BLM's plans are, there's two steps to this, you rezone and then you ask for building permits and such like that. So there's two steps to it. I don't see a downside to rezoning it, to allow you to get your project done on time and funded. I think having a extra fire station and the work that the BLM does, and knowing, when there's a fire out south or east or west, you have way better access and you're not driving through our town with fire trucks and such. And I, you know, being seasonal, I know about the time we have fire season, it's impossible for you folks to rent apartments and such. I personally don't see a downside to this. I know it's not gonna be 100% appreciated, but that's where I'm at.
Mr. Mayor, you're talking about cars up there on the property that they wanna.
Well, I'm talking about rezoning it all, because it's one parcel, you can't rezone part of
The city,
it.
BLM, all the way down Donnell.
But we did, not cities tonight, didn't apply for a zone change.
That's right,
But-
but then we're gonna jump over and do this section where they wanna do work, and then we're over to, that parcel of land along Donnell up to Pershing.
Right. But we have no choice, it's not subdivided. If we're gonna do something tonight so they can take advantage of that grant,
I don't know the legalities of it, and I don't know how you go about doing it. Residents that signed this petition, that's the reason they, a portion of the property that runs along Donnell to talking about. I don't know the answer to it, I don't know
well,
what we can do to change how the BLM to do, the work they wanna do on their property.
the fact of the matter is I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the reasons these, folks are upset is because they might have taken it that that section to the east is gonna end up being fire station and whatnot, when it's not, it's gonna be over here.
No,
That's
no,
That's not correct?
no.
Can I speak?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Councilman
Sitting,
Lockwood.
sitting on planning and zoning, I have a lot to say about this, and I've been trying to speak for a minute. So, the legal description is wrong in the application. So, I don't understand how planning and zoning passed that, 100%, okay, with the legal description wrong. It encompassed more property than what was applied for, okay? So when you have a legal action at that point in time, it should have just been thrown out. It's just like a board of adjustments not meeting the requirements, it should just be thrown out. That's exactly how I feel with this, okay? I'm sorry if people wanna rezone it or not, but that should have not passed planning and zoning. My vote on planning and zoning was no, due to some of that stuff, okay? The other thing is if the map was up there again,
Oh, yes, sir.
please. So where they want to build their barracks and their fire station is where the star is. If you were just going to rezone that, it is correct, you'd have to subdivide it to make it proper, okay? But if you just did that, it would cause spot zoning. The only reason this is not spot zoning is a skate around from 100-foot section there that connects the property on the east side to the west side. That's the only reason that is not spot zoning, okay? And that, it was not supposed to be encompassed in there, and it's in that legal description to go that side. Now, the other problem is with what Benita had stated, there's nothing that states that cannot be developed, and the residents have no say in anything that can be developed on there once it's rezoned. Nothing stating that at all. So there's a 20%, signing petition, 20% to petition it. Nothing like a board of adjustments for a variance saying you have to have 50% signatures for any kind of businesses to go in there. It could ruin the house value of any of them individuals up there, and I can't have that for what I stand for. No way, no how. And that's why the citizens are against it. Another thing, Benita stated, the fire station is not gonna be built. These individuals stated as the planning and zoning, that might be 10, 15 years down the road possibly before maybe funding is available for that. So then, the other thing that goes with this is, it's for a emergency service, police, fire, or ambulance. 19.08.147 is what their use is for. It's not for the barracks, just the barracks. It's meaning the fire station and their barracks, okay? So if you go to any kind of boarding, lodging, or anything else, it's a 19.08.080, okay, on that. And that only allows for like, I wanna say 6 to 10 rooms max. So it's not, it wouldn't even be a legal deal in that zone. So that's my piece, sorry, I will not approve this, and, I won't vote for it.
Councilman Durst?
So, one question I have, for the barracks alone, does it require a rezone? Or is the rezone for planning ahead with the whole thing? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
I assume I would be asking you.
So that, this issue of what is permitted in C2 was brought up at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and, do you have that? So once you rezone, Councilman's correct, you approve C2 zoning. You're
Whatever that
not
may be.
saying that we're approving this for A, B, and C. Whatever the permitted uses are under C2. One of the permitted uses, you have temporary housing, okay, that's under C2 permitted use, so that's what the Planning and Zoning Commission looked at. If you look at temporary housing, there's a definition in here. Apologize, you gotta flip back and forth. The definition in the ordinance was consistent with what was represented to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which was that this is going to be seasonal housing for employees. That they would open it up in May, shut it back down in October or November. So temporary housing is defined under the ordinance.
13.08.
Say that again?
19.08.716.
Temporary housing means any structure for the primary use of housing or the dwelling of any individual by compensation of rent. So the individual staying there do pay the BLM some sort of rent, payable in monthly or other consideration for a limited residing time of less than a year but longer than 3 months. That's permitted in C2.
So the barracks alone would be permissible as is? No
Yes.
zone requirement would be needed?
No, it would be permitted in C2.
Oh, but not as is?
Right, not in residential.
Okay, so the barracks.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
No, that's fine. The barracks by themselves require a rezone?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, I was just curious about that. And in the end, honestly, I'm with Councilman Weisenberg. I mean, if the application isn't 100%, I have to say no. There's a point, has nothing to do with the long-term projects, I get it, I support it. But somewhere we have to stand up and say, this stuff has to be put forward properly. And I get frustrated with improper applications and things not being done the way that they need to be. And if it wasn't advertised exactly the way it is, and it wasn't presented exactly the way it is, in my opinion, I agree, you start it all over and come back with the proper information. That's just where I'm at with it.
I don't know how it was presented to that board. That's why I'm asking, is it presented correctly to us? We're not here to decide what that other board did. That's a separation. We're here to decide whether the information coming to us.
I agree, but there's a whole process that required a lot of proper information to have gotten to us. And should it even be here if it was not proper to begin with.
Yes, so we originally filed this application March 24th of 2021. I have a file stamped copy that has the correct legal description on it, and includes both sections. And I have it scanned, I'd be happy to email it to you. And then we filed an amended, application in, January, because we wanted to narrow it down, we were told we couldn't, right? So we originally asked for the entire parcel. And like I said, I have file stamped copies of the original application that has the correct legal description that should have been, and so where it got messed up, I don't know. But I have the original application file stamped with the correct legal description on it.
But you just said that what was presented hung up into the residential area.
What was
It was
presented as
advertised,
the legal notice was section 20, southeast half, northwest quarter, southeast quarter, and northeast quarter.
Southeast quarter, northeast quarter, southeast quarter, northwest quarter.
South half portion was the incorrect, but that wasn't in our application. Our application was, so I don't know where that necessarily came from. We didn't do the legal,
Two things. I would think the amended application would trump the initial. So how the amended application is presented, what's reviewed, which is just that one little section. And then, when I brought up the legal at the last planning meeting where it said the southeast half, northwest quarter section, that was, advertised wrong, yes, but when I got home and actually looked at the packet, everything that went to the board added that additional section that wasn't applied for in the amended application.
yeah, the amended application, we wanted to avoid this whole issue of, why do you want to rezone an area that you, but because we wanted to avoid all this, right? So we tried to amend our application, and we were basically told that we could not, because it's all one parcel. So that's, I think.
So that kinda got rescinded, right?
Right, but I believe that may be the only application that you have. I don't know that you have the March 2021 application.
That's another question.
Yes, Councilman Smith.
So, this is the original description that covered that whole entire section, correct? Even that, which included all of these homes. That's the original?
No, I don't know where that, so the original legal description was the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter,
East, northwest,
here, right, and then the, southeast, northeast, which would be,
here,
just this portion. So it's, yeah,
and where is the bottom line on the,
so it would be,
on this, quarter section?
yeah, so like that, so that's how the quarter is.
Along with that.
So it's not exact because we do our legal descriptions to the quarter, section. We didn't get a meets and bounds. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify because, you know, I did the application, I've been involved from the get-go, and there certainly was never any intent to misrepresent or anything like that, so, anyway. Oh, okay, the actual.
So which-
yeah, sure.
If you point it out.
So this is section, on the large.
Here, we'll just let you, drive it here.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, drive it here, thank you, sir.
All right. So, the original application
And it'll be slow.
was the southeast quarter, the northwest quarter, which would be this area in here. The application also included the southeast quarter of the northeast quarter, this area here. And again, I realize it's a bit larger, but it encompasses BLM, property. And So that's why it's inexact, but it includes those areas. Like I say, we asked for the amended application for just the southeast of the northwest, which would only have been this section here. But again, because these two parcels connect right here, down in here, we were told that would be spot zoning, and we couldn't do that, so we included the entire thing. So that's why we asked for all this, even though we don't, that's not what we want. But we needed to do the entire parcel, so.
Ma'am?
Clarify one thing. Any means, but I do know how to read. The way everything has been advertised, when you get to that bigger section, they say southeast quarter and northwest quarter. So by putting the word "and" in between those two sections, those two, they add a whole nother section. Right in my letter. So it's, the way, it's not reading like an appropriate legal, in my mind. In my mind, it should read section 20, southeast quarter, northwest quarter. Yep, that's good. But when you put the word "and" in between two sections, you're adding a whole nother section. And that's the way it's been advertised, that's the way the motion was moved at the planning meeting.
And
That's where I have the problem.
they're two different orders, so we had to include both. Like, there's the northwest quarter, and it's the northeast quarter, and so we described down to the quarter section. I mean, there would be no other way for me to describe it. I was gonna move on now.
My question is for Tom. Do you see any discrepancies in how we advertise for what we're voting on?
I've not seen the legal for this meeting. I don't know if anybody has it.
It's on the attachment.
I'm looking at the legal from the.
Right here.
Can you just read it for me?
Property near, okay, so the property located near Donnell and Bennett Street, north of State Highway 71. It's exactly what the motion is, too. More specific described as Township 21 North, Range 87 West, Section 20 Southeast, 1/4, Northwest 1/4, Southeast 1/4, and...
Slow down. Southeast 1/4, northwest 1/4, and then what's?
Southeast and 1/4, and northeast 1/4 of Rollins, Carbon County, Wyoming. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to read it.
I've got it. So again, that legal is the legal that I presented to you when I came around and showed you this. It encompasses that section that they're trying to build on, but it also does not include that property to the west. It includes another quarter of a section, 2/4 of sections as that legal is described. That wasn't very articulate. So it includes property to the south of the interstate. It includes property to the north of the interstate, including the residential area, and then it includes property adjacent to that industrial section.
So should we be, that?
It encompasses more than what they're trying to build on.
But there's no way to just do what they want to build on without subdividing, correct?
Correct. But they could go through the subdivision process and describe those as different parcels.
In our case, we have to go through the subdivision process. Encompassing that property from Donnell up to Pershing. if that's the right way to go, but I'd like to help them with their project. I agree with their project, where they wanna put it, but I don't want it placed down Donnell Street all the way down to Pershing.
Smith?
I would like to ask Tom this question. Do we have the authority to grant less than what they requested in the, in other words, could we leave out that southeast 1/4 section?
I honestly, I don't know the answer.
Yeah, then we still have a straight shot across, and getting down into the weeds down.
You left out the legal, or the notice as just read, is somewhat contradictory, because it talks about that property north of Highway 71, but you have the legal property south, not only Highway 71, south of the interstate. And I believe what the planning commission believed they were voting on was the BLM section adjacent to C2, that sliver that goes, it's 120-foot wide, approximately, piece of property that goes south of the city property, and then that entire BLM portion all the way up against to, adjacent to, industrial purple.
That's exactly what was presented, is that section over there, nothing south of the interstate or anything.
So if we stuck with what the planning commission advised, would that be in order? Would that be the, proper?
What the legal description does not encompass is that property, the west, at least as I have it roughly drawn out on this schematic or this overhead, it doesn't encompass that property, the west of where that star is at. In other words, it doesn't go all the way over the corporate boundary and north to the industrial section.
One more thing, and I promise I'll
No, you don't have to.
So the legal that's been provided and the motion that's moved, if you go to, the packet that I provided you, that 120-foot section that Mr. Thompson was talking about is in a completely different quarter section that wasn't listed in the legal.
The legal includes the southeast and the northeast.
Right, but when the planning commission moved, they moved thinking that they were approving that U section, which that was not.
This northeast quarter description includes that.
Got a question real quick. This, 19.08.716, where is that listed? And, in that packet that we were provided in the planning and zoning packet under the, 19.28.020 schedule of uses, I do not see, 19.08.716 in there.
The definition?
Just anything that says, I mean, there's, everything is listed, see, I don't know if you guys could see that, right? Yeah, so it's all the uses and it goes down through everything that's, but I don't see that .716 in that.
But,
It says temporary housing.
yeah, so I'll try to, again, I think, answer the question. Under C2, under 19.28.020, there's a schedule of uses.
Yep.
When you approve a zone change, you're not approving any specific use. the applicant is entitled to use the property for any of those permitted uses in that zone. The packet that was the presentation from the BLM at that meeting was that it was going to be used as a, temporary housing, so barracks. They represented that it would be seasonal, that it wouldn't be, year-round residents, and that if they had additional money, it would be used as a fire station. So both of those uses is permitted under a C2 zone.
Yeah, I understand that, but under this 19.28.020, the schedule of uses, I do not see a 19.08.716 as a use.
Give me, what's 19.78.016?
0.716?
Yeah.
That was the, temporary housing, what you said earlier.
None of that schedule refers to code references to definitions. You have to look at temporary housing and then go to the definitional section.
So it's not listed in our ordinance under that schedule of uses then?
Temporary housing is, that's a permitted use.
See what I'm saying right there? Yeah.
So it's not gonna refer to the code section. It's gonna refer to, for example, temporary housing. So then you go to the definitional section of the ordinance and look up temporary housing. And if it meets that definition, it's a permitted use. None of that 19.28.020 for any use, from art gallery to veterinarian hospital, refer to a section in the code.
Yeah, and I understand that, correct, but what I'm saying is temp housing says it's under that 19.08.080. It is listed in that section with boarding/lodging house and temporary temp housing. It's listed under the 19.08.080. That was a question we had at the, planning and zoning. And then the other number was thrown out there for temporary housing definition, but if you go to that .080, it just says boarding or lodging house.
But yeah, I think I understand your question now. Where under section 8, it says boarding/lodging house, okay? So that's one permitted use.
Yep.
And then it has a comma, and it says temporary housing.
Correct.
So those are both permitted uses in C2.
Correct, and I understand that, but it's all under a reference code of the 19.08.080. Temporary housing is including in that, inside the schedule of uses there. It's not separated out into like a 10 or a 9, it's under 8 only. So, when someone goes to look that up, we can't, you go to the 19.08.080 is what I'm saying, when you look that up, if it's included in that section 8.
You're concerned that it's referencing the wrong code?
Exactly. It's referencing a wrong code because there's a whole different definition for temporary housing. When you look up the actual code that's referenced here, right, it goes to boarding or lodging houses, that don't allow for more than I could read it. It says boarding or lodging house means a private dwelling in which at least 2, but no more than 6 rooms are offered for rent, payable in money or other consideration, whether or not table board is furnished or lodgers, and in which no transients are accommodated and no public restaurant is maintained, right? So that's what that is referenced under section 8. It's not that when we're given a definition of temp housing and we gotta go reference it under a 19.08.716, this should have a whole different section in here.
That was in the...
That was in planning and zoning packet, yeah, I guess that's where I have, all this information from that meeting.
And again, not to advocate approval or disapproval, but what you're voting on is the zone change, not the specific use within C2. So once the applicant, if they receive a zone change, they're entitled to use it for any purpose set forth under C2.
So if I ask for a zone change, I can just build whatever I want afterwards, it don't have to be included in that application that was in there?
You're asking for a zone change, you're not asking for a building permit. Eric talked about earlier, it's a two-step process.
It's just in the packet, what they're gonna build is what I'm referencing to, you see what I'm saying? It's not,
In the packet you received at the other meeting.
which is referred to from the other the Planning and Zoning Commission refers it up to, for recommended approval, on a different, you know, thought of what was actually gonna be approved and not approved.
Trying to find a solution, in regards to potential, vote on this.
I want them to understand, I want the project to go through, right?
It's not a comment on your discussion, I'm just, I think there was an earlier question in regards to the southeast quarter. So, those who would have been notified on the southeast quarter, I'm trying to look, and on the schematic that I have, within 300 feet of that, if that's what was done on the other portion of the application, I don't think it would include anybody out there. And so, if the BLM's intent is to only, change that portion, which includes the southeast quarter of the north, south half of the northwest quarter and the southeast quarter and the northeast quarter, they could, I guess they could ask the council to consider withdrawing that southeast quarter.
We were talking about the U, and he said that the southeast quarter and the northeast quarter, put the word "and," encompass that U. So if that northeast quarter encompasses the U, does that pertain to all the houses that are in that, because that's in that section, in that legal, so all the houses that are already residential, that mean those houses in residential turn to commercial, advertising it as that whole section?
I think you could address that in the motion by making the zone change applicable to the property owned by the BLM within that.
With that language.
What you're suggesting is that we just could, actually okay a zone change project. No, they still gotta do the whole thing.
Still, because of spot zoning, you still have to go across. So I think what you, again, case law directly on point in regards to this specific situation, but could make a motion and that portion of the BLM property is owned north of the interstate within the northeast quarter and within the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter, contingent upon the BLM making application for that property that they own north of the interstate and west, so that you would go all the way up to the industrial.
Instead of to the east, they would have it rezoned to the west.
That would include what's marked as BLM, the star, and then BLM to the west.
That wouldn't be spot zoning, cause you get that little 120-foot section there.
That would not include the city property? I thought the city property had to be included.
No.
Way down here,
The,
So
what
the
the
business
planning,
zone down and around it.
yeah, the application, they can't make application for somebody else's property to be rezoned, and what the planning commission considered is that U-shape that goes south of the city property.
Okay, I guess I kind of misunderstood something. That's a cool thing to do.
So it would be both pieces of BLM plus that 120-foot piece between the city and the
Correct.
frontage road.
With the contingency that they, make application in 30 days for that property, it would be west of their current application, to encompass everything up against, the industrial section. Because otherwise, I think what you're faced with is you've rezoned C2, but then you're now have a section between C2 and industrial that's R7.5.
Oh, I see.
So what you're saying is after we change the zone for what, we can come back, ask for another application to the property,
Yes.
talking east.
The east is in, that would be rezoned.
east would be rezone C2 because it's abutting C2 already, the red zone.
Well, and that's how you,
No, they want
that's
to
how,
change it.
right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, all of it,
Yeah, but where it says BLM up there,
yeah,
on the right,
right,
on the left, where the star is,
right,
and below the city's property to the frontage road,
yes.
that's what they're asking rezone, because it's all one chunk. Am I right?
Yes. That would be the intent, is to have the entire parcel north of the interstate rezone.
We would have to change the language of the motion or vacate the motion and start over.
Amend it, yeah. And the problem is, for a while, there's no guarantees what the planning and zoning commission would do. You do have a section that is C2, and then R7.5, and then industrial.
If you change just really going along like the northeast, well, you just go, you don't want the residential part, so this is 1/4. So if you split that in right quarter, let's go down to the line, so you got 1/4 here, you've got 1/4 of a quarter, or half a quarter here, and it goes down to this line here, and you've got a very symmetrical thing. And that gives you, it gets you out of your spot zoning. And that does not redo the city's 7 point, which is now residential, so Don Elm Street would not be. And this part would not be in the rezone.
Well, I think the part that you're pointing to is adjacent to the C2.
That's correct. So then we would get out of.
But we're trying to subdivide a parcel.
Oh, that's the problem. If we are less than what was described, we are subdividing it?
I think if you only zone a portion of a parcel, I don't know if the city's done that before, where you have a large parcel of land and you come in and you zone portions of it differently.
I just don't think you could. I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but Vice Mayor Wells.
Is there any way you could do it contingent on them dividing the land?
I don't know if they want to subdivide property.
Sure, absolutely.
I know we had discussed this earlier, and we discussed it be on the back half of that, subdivision. So, the BLM, you know, we talked at length about, we would apply for a subdivision and be willing to, back to try and do on that. But the question was, when we read through what would be required for us to go back through that zoning. So we had definitely discussed that. I think the big thing for the BLM is the unknown of, you know, what is gonna be asked of us if we back and doing that, you know. We'll have money to kind of do extra better, or things like that around those eastern parcels, so that was kind of the discussion about, you know, what that would entail. That might be worth something. I just wanted, we did spend a lot of time talking about it, in fact, we did write a draft letter, but we weren't sure what would be required, and we want to make promises for things. Thank you for the acknowledgement.
I think if it was a subdivision, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I guess, Lou, you don't have to do any kind of curb and gutter until it's a development, correct?
Well, then, the way our municipal code is written, you would have to have your paved streets, curb and gutter. So for this piece of property that Lem is looking at possibly rezoning, that would be one of the.
Yes.
Would it be possible, I'm sorry, I know, would it be possible to get a waiver?
I think it is, but I haven't reviewed that section of the code to answer that question. They would be required to submit definitely a preliminary plat, a final plat, do a survey, all of that, so, to do a subdivision.
I'd like to note that the C2 property that's zoned out there right now does not have curb and gutter and paint. There's no requirements to make it built.
But to change from C two to 7.5 is what you're saying, Lou, then the requirements kick in. Is that correct, or?
I think what Lou was talking about was if they're gonna subdivide, there'd be additional requirements, including a preliminary plat, a final plat, and then they'd have to follow the subdivision ordinance. What that requires and what can be waived, not sure. I mean, we've got the Miles subdivision, that's in preliminary plat approval, that, we're not making all those requirements upon that. They did have to submit a preliminary.
Tom, when they would build the barracks, so they would have to get a permitting process, and then they have to go according to the ordinance. That would include landscaping, that kind of thing, all under permitting.
Any further comments from anybody?
What's actually required for your grant proposal?
So, yeah, the zoning change. So as far as the deadline, don't get
March for this project is gonna be March for
I think this may have been discussed either in meetings with the city manager and planning and zoning, I can't remember, but is there a guarantee that this facility will be built if the zone change?
I guess I can't guarantee you it would be built, but, so we'll, if it's approved, we'll start our contracting process. Have to get bids. To build.
Other comments or questions from anybody in the room? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, just a question, in regards to your existing, it's still usable.
So, yeah, right now it is, but in, I mean, it's a repair, so we'll.
In other words, simply, is it usable?
Currently,
It could be usable, it might not be ideal, but it is usable.
current.
Thank you.
Okay. Further? Guess it's time to open online voting.
Like, online voting open?
Wait a minute. Very complicated stuff. So I would go back to the original motion and ask that there be, amendment made. If the person making the motion would like to. Pay attention here.
Okay, I'm gonna try to.
Do you want me to try to give you the legal?
That would be best.
So it would be that portion of, the BLM property as advertised, north of Interstate 80, the northeast quarter of section 20, running westerly to the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter, section 20, also north of Interstate, with the contingency that said zone change includes a BLM application for that property adjacent to southeast quarter of the northwest quarter in section 20, adjacent to the industrial zone property, the railroad tracks, and the interstate.
I almost got.
What I was trying to do, Mayor and Council, was encompass that entire U-shaped portion of BLM property north of the interstate and adjacent to Rollins.
Yeah, I hope you never send a message saying, meet me here, and that's the description. Never find me, but.
Do you want me to try to do this amendment?
Yes.
I'm gonna try to do this amendment.
Mayor Council, Mayor Smith, can you just hold on, Council? I didn't even get the whole thing. So,
I wrote it down.
okay, you go, okay.
Okay, bear with motion, grant zone change to C2, that portion of the BM land that is north of the, highway, or of the BLM land owned north of the State 80, northeast quarter in section 20.
Oh, that's correct.
Okay, within section 20, southeast, northwest, westerly to southeast, northwest, section 20, also north of Interstate 80, with the contingency that the BLM will apply for an application for purposes of adjacent to the southeast northwest, adjacent to the industrial state and the railroad. Yeah, I forgot the westerly part.
Good note there.
Good job.
It's all around the whole paper.
And you seconded that motion. Okay. So, first we'll vote on the amendment, correct?
Yes.
And we have online voting or not going?
Go online if you'd like.
I would ask our attorney to. Intent is there, and I've got the northeast and southwest, southeast, northwest, and all that.
I'm not gonna repeat that motion. There's been a motion made and seconded to amend the initial, motion to read as was read by Councilman Smith.
Eric, may I say one thing?
Yes.
So what you're doing, what this motion is you're approving all the BLM property north of the interstate that was in the legal notice with the contingency that they come back and add the additional property north of interstate.
So stuff to the west of there.
Correct.
So up here. Is that correct? Okay. So we advertise the
So do you wanna online voting or do you wanna vote by voice? Online voting?
online voting is open.
That's not cast a voice vote. Vote no?
No.
Online voting has closed, the motion failed, there was 3 yeas and 4 nays. 3 yeas were Vice Mayor Wells, Mayor Wycombe, and nays were Councilmember Durst, Councilmember Martinez, Councilmember Weisenberg, and Councilmember Gardner.
All right, thank you. Next thing on our agenda
Mr. Mayor.
is.
About
yeah,
the
we got-
procedure,
oh, yeah.
so we should still have the original motion on the table.
You're right, right. So
I will
discussion?
withdraw the original. Or can I do that after an amendment was made? I apologize.
Okay, so now we'll vote on the original motion.
Online voting is open.
I vote no.
No.
Online voting has closed, the motion failed, there was 2 yeas, Mayor Wycombe and Councilmember Smith, and the nays were Councilmember Durst, Councilmember Martinez, Vice Mayor Wells, Member Weisenberg, and Councilmember Gardner.
Right, thank you. With no further business to come, before this council, I'll call this meeting adjourned. It is 7:51. Our next regular meeting is